Welcome to the Militia Gaming community. I'm Trigger, and we just got an insane amount of information yesterday regarding Need for Speed Unbound. So let's go through every little bit piece by piece, and I can talk to you about what this actually means for the players. Let's go. Real quick before I get into it, I like to make Unbound videos as short and sweet as possible, but there is so much information in this one that it's going to take a little bit longer to get through it. And keep in mind, I'm going to do a lot of Unbound content in the future, so if you like this video, check out some of the stuff I do in the future as well. All right, let's get into it. So there's a handful of game mechanics and different features and activities that they talked about in this week's Under the Hood, and some of them are exactly the same as what's in Need for Speed Heat, and some of them are different and new. And so here is the full list of what we're going to be talking about today. On the left side, you see these are the same as Need for Speed Heat, and on the right side, this is all the different stuff. So we're going to go through the same stuff first. So with Need for Speed Unbound, you've got some activities that are the same as in Need for Speed Heat, only with like slight tweaks to them. So for example, the drift mechanic is basically the exact same as it is in Heat. You can use gas or brake to drift. Now what's different is that you can actually turn the drift mechanic off somehow, and you can tune your car to grip, but I'll be talking about that in just a moment. The next thing that's the same in Heat is the drift zones. There's going to be drift zones in free roam. These are not drift events that are on closed circuits like they were in Heat. These are just drift zones that are out and open in the wild, but they've added a slight twist to these. There is now a time limit on how fast you can do them, because basically what you're being scored on is how long you are drifting. That's how the scoring is going to work. So there's still drift zones. That's the same as Heat, and that's pretty much the same as a lot of free roam arcade racers. But anyway, the new thing is they're adding time limits. The speed traps are going to be exactly the same. It's a radar that records your speed the second you go through the gates, and the higher speed you have, the more stars you get or the more reward you get for that speed trap. There's also jumps in Need for Speed Unbound, which are exactly the same as Heat. The farther you jump, the better reward you're gonna get. And there's collectibles like billboards, street art, and bears instead of flamingos because, well, the game is centered in Chicago and that's their football team. So, all right, that's it. That's all the stuff that's the same in terms of what was talked about in this article, and that's actually pretty exciting. The list is very short. Let's go to what's different or new. So the first thing that I really want to talk about is grip tuning. So grip tuning is kind of insane to think about that it offers both. Usually game mechanics will have one or the other and you can't switch between them. Like in Need for Speed Heat, drifting around corners was mostly faster than gripping. Now, if you can keep your speed and grip the corner like you could with the RSR, obviously that's the fastest way to take it. But most corners require a grip to take the corner at full speed. So this is kind of interesting. This is a new way to approach the handling model for this game. You've got options. You can tune your car to be grip tuned, or you can tune it to be drifting tuned. Now, because of that, your drifting or grip tuning will build NOS. So there's a way for this game to recognize when you take a turn and you grip turn. That mechanic will actually build your NOS. So that's the next thing on the list. You can drift or grip a turn. Both ways you're going to be gaining NOS, and then you can use that coming out of the turn. Another new mechanic is the perfect start mechanic. This is popularized way back when in Mario Kart, where you would hit the gas exactly on go and it would give you a huge boost right off the launch of the race. This is a mechanic in Need for Speed Unbound as well. And then next is the leaderboards for Takeover. Now this is kind of interesting. We're actually getting leaderboards for a specific mode or a specific activity in Need for Speed Unbound. But this makes me think, is there gonna be leaderboards for multiplayer? And we should know the answer to that next week, because next week's Under the Hood is all about multiplayer. But this is interesting. They mentioned the word leaderboards in this article, and it just gets me excited. I really want to see leaderboards for basically everything in the game. I want to be able to compare where I'm at to where the fastest racers are in the game and the fastest, best players in the game. I want to see where I rank. And I think the majority of the community also wants to see that. It's just so helpful. It gives you something to play for, and it just tells you where you are, and it makes you want to grind and get better. So I hope leaderboards are throughout the game. but in this article they say there is a leaderboard for the takeover mode. Also for the takeover mode, when you're done with the takeover, the cop chase will start immediately. So once you complete a takeover, just be ready to enter a cop chase because it's going to happen right away. It doesn't talk about how difficult or what heat level that's going to be, but my guess is it probably depends on what your heat level was when you entered the takeover. There's also car deliveries, and there's going to be various heat levels, aka difficulties, for each of the deliveries. There are low heat deliveries, which the objective is just to get the car delivered ASAP, and you don't really need to worry about damaging the car. And then there's high heat deliveries, where the objective is actually to get the car there delivered as soon as possible and with as little damage as possible. The rewards will be determined by how fast and how clean the car is when it's delivered, and you can actually hit the gas station to repair the car before you deliver it, and you must lose the cops before you deliver the vehicle. Now, alongside that, there are passenger deliveries, which is actually just this game's mechanic to unlock your safe houses. So the clock starts on passenger deliveries the second you get the call, and your speed is important. And again, cops will spawn the second you pick up that stranded racer that's asking you to give them a ride. Now, some people I've seen online are already comparing this to Crazy Taxi. It's going to be nothing like that. Crazy Taxi, if you don't know what it is just a taxi game where you pick up multiple passengers and you have a time limit and you're trying to get as many payouts or as many passengers as possible. That's not going to be the case in this. This is actually the mechanic that unlocks your safe houses. So there's probably only going to be 10 or so of these missions where you have to pick up the passenger, deliver them to the safe house, and then you'll earn that safe house. And it's probably tied to how much progression you have in the story mode or the campaign. So the farther you progress in the campaign, the more passenger deliveries that are available to you. I'm not sure, but I think you have to start them the second they give you the call, because that's when the clock is supposed to be starting. So we'll kind of see once we get into it, but that's the details of that. The biggest payouts are going to be for the people who lose the cops and get to that destination in time. All right, next up is speed runs. This is a new activity in Need for Speed. It's not new to arcade games because there's a mode that's like this, or there's an activity like this in Forza Horizon series where they call it, I believe, speed zones. But basically it's a predetermined course, and it's not closed off. It's just in the open world where your average speed is measured when you're passing through each of the checkpoints. Higher speed equals higher reward, and you have to stay on this specified course. It's basically just speed zones from Forza Horizon, but it's cool to have something else to grind for in this one, especially for all of those 100%ers out there that want more activities to do. Another new thing, and this is actually really interesting, there's a new in-air and landing mechanic. Now, I don't understand exactly how this mechanic works, but basically you can control the pitch and the direction of your car. You can control whether your nose is down or up while you're in the air, or your car is turning to the left or the right. Now, my assumption is that the flatter you land, like with all four wheels hitting the ground at the same time, the cleaner and faster the transition will be from air to ground. Now, this might only matter to people going for fast times on certain courses, but it will be interesting to see how this works once we get the game. This clip that I'm showing you is actually one where I think this mechanic is featured. I don't think they meant to, but it definitely looks strange. The landing of the Subaru, it's kind of off, right? When he jumps, the nose of the car is heading downward, and he pulls it back up and for some reason tilts it to the left. It really doesn't answer any real questions, and it doesn't say that he's using that mechanic, but this looks like what it's talking about. This new in-air and landing mechanic might have a lot to do with how fast you can complete runs, because maybe certain courses will have jumps or whatnot. So anyway, it's kind of new and interesting for sure. Now, moving on to the challenges. Now, challenges are basically just a passive way to give you rewards for things that you're doing in the game by completing everything in the game. You're gonna have challenges for everything, like activities, races, story missions, escaping the cops, collectibles, all of that stuff. There's gonna be specific challenges tied to each of those activities, and that's kind of nice. Again, for people who are completionists or 100%ers, there's a lot to do there. There's a lot to grind for. And by completing these challenges, you're gonna be earning driving effects, cash, and unlocking cars. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what all of this means for the players, because that, I think, is the most important thing. The bottom line, and the thing I want to hammer home on this video, is that There is a lot more to do in Need for Speed Unbound versus Need for Speed Heat. If you notice, the list of things that are the same in Heat is very, very small compared to the list of things that is different. And what's nice is the list of things that's different seems like these are actually activities that we can take part in and complete, and it'll take longer to 100% the game. I think that's super important and notable. What it says to me is they were listening at least a little bit to the community feedback. People really liked Heat. However, they felt it was too short. The campaign was too short. Well, guess what? They're adding 2 campaigns. You have a multiplayer and you have a single player. The activities were too easy to complete and didn't take very long. Well, they've kept the existing activities that were in Heat and then added 4 new activities. That's takeovers, car deliveries, passenger deliveries, and speed runs. So that's actually really cool. And on top of all of that, they've given you a way to track your progress with the challenges. There's a lot that they've added to this, but it seems to me that this is really just a Need for Speed Heat 2. I've said this before, it's a Need for Speed Heat 2, but with a lot of things added onto it, which is what we wanted in the beginning with Heat. Now, they could have taken all of this stuff and maybe just added it to Need for Speed Heat a long time ago, but I like the idea of going in a different direction with a new name, a new art style, and a new driving mechanic. I just think it's all going to equate to a lot more fun than when we were playing Need for Speed Heat. So if there's anything you want to remember about this long video, remember this. Need for Speed Unbound is basically the foundation of Need for Speed Heat, plus a bunch more activities and a bunch more things to do. I'm excited. I really can't wait to play this. And just so you guys know, next week they're going to put out an Under the Hood that's all about multiplayer, which we have not seen anything about yet. So I'm excited to see what goes on there. Who knows, maybe my excitement and my hype for this game might change if we get some bad news about multiplayer, but I really can't wait to check it out. I want to see exactly what's in store for us on November 29th when we get to start playing the game. So thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for making it through this long video if you've made it this far. If you have any questions about this, you can hit me up in my DMs. They're always open, and I do read through every single one, so send me a DM if you have questions or you just want to comment about Need for Speed Unbound or Need for Speed Heat. And also, if you're looking for a way to support the channel, you can do so with a super thanks, or you can become a member. We have 2 membership tiers, the $5 and $10. It's a Heat 3 and Heat 5 membership. The Heat 5 members get extra things like members only streams and things like that. So if you want to support the channel, that's a great way to do it. I appreciate it. And shout out to all the Heat 5 members of the channel. I really appreciate your support. Thank you guys so much. I will catch you on the next one. Trigger out.